We talk a lot about fuel management, thinning forests, prescribed burns. We do this already, but nearly every expert that I talked to said we're not doing nearly enough to prevent a catastrophic wildfire. So I wanted to know if lawmakers would dedicate the funding to make that happen.
Dry weather made worse by extreme heat led to conditions ripe for massive, destructive fires. State leaders say climate change will only exacerbate the problem. As we try to adapt, experts say it's imperative to change how we address overgrown and small trees that have been shown to make fires worse.
Well, it is a big boat to turn, to use that analogy.
John Bailey, a forestry professor at Oregon State University, said our country focused for decades on putting fires out, which allowed those fuels to build up. When it comes to fire behavior, Bailey said it comes down to three things: weather, topography, and fuels. We can't immediately do anything about those first two, but Bailey said we can manage fuels.
If we can do that, then we at least won't live in fear of wildfire all the time.
That mitigation work includes prescribed burns and thinning forests. A few years ago, Governor Kate Brown convened a council on wildfire response. In 2019, members published a report with more than 30 recommendations, among them spending $200 million each year for the next 2 decades on fuel management. The goal, address about 300,000 acres a year.
It affects every Oregonian.
Matt Donegan is chair of the committee.
This needs to be a long-term, permanent priority for our state, right up there with the highest priorities in our state, education, healthcare, and so forth.
He said the governor and the legislature have largely listened to their recommendations. When it comes to fuels, lawmakers dedicated some funding in the last legislative session and directed the state to come up with a plan.
Are we meeting those recommendations right now in terms of fuels management?
No, we're not meeting them. We have a lot of work to do.
Doug Graff is the Oregon Department of Forestry's chief of fire protection. He said mitigation efforts are proven to be effective. For the past decade, ODF has done prescribed burns on about 175,000 acres each year, which is a good start. But he agrees with forestry experts we need to increase how many acres we treat.
What sort of funding does the state need to dedicate towards this kind of management?
I just don't think it's the state also.
Graff said local, state, and federal agencies have to work together. During a recent press conference, Governor Brown touted $200 million in additional investments for wildfires during the legislative session. That included nearly $30 million for fuel management.
I know it's not enough. There's obviously more investment that needs to be made.
Brown said Oregon needs a strong federal partner, too. So I went to Senator Jeff Merkley.
What are you doing with your position in the Senate to make that happen and specifically dedicate funding towards that?
I'm pushing for billions of dollars on the bipartisan bill, the reconciliation bill, and the interior funding bill to be able to do this type of forest management.
We can't make this fix in a year, maybe even 5 years. But what's clear, experts and elected leaders know what they need to do. Now they have to take action.
A few years ago, lawmakers touted what's called a wildfire funding fix at the federal level. Essentially, it prevented the U.S. Forest Service from raiding other parts of its budget to pay for the increasing cost to fight wildfire. But experts that I spoke with, the National Association of State Foresters, said that it didn't come with the expected infusion of cash to do this mitigation effort for fuels management that we're talking about.
It was only in the last month that Candy added those armed guards and bulletproof vests. And in the weeks that followed, they also implemented pat-downs for anyone that walks through the door here. The owner tells me this comes after watching violence in the neighborhood increase, and he felt the need to make a change.
It's a change businesses across downtown are making. Places like Dixie Tavern, Shake Nightclub, and Fuse are all adding bulletproof vests for staff. The owners tell me they feel the pressure to take safety into their own hands, following foot traffic on the rise, and Portland scaling back the police bureau's entertainment district detail last year. The owner at Candy says armed security does not come cheap, especially as these businesses compete for resources.
The guards have their own gear, but we're paying them a premium to get guards that have that stuff, to get guards that it's not a look for them, that these are trained individuals. We just felt that was the safest thing to do.
Staff with Ted Wheeler's office tell us public safety is a top priority for the mayor and that all businesses and community members deserve to feel safe. They say Portland has increased the police presence downtown with more daily foot patrols, as well as strategic deployment in certain areas and times as the city continues to reopen.
Many have been pushing for safe, sanctioned housing, and while the city is working on putting up 6 new outdoor shelters, none of those have even broken ground.
So is it that they won't move because they don't want to? Is it that they won't move because they have nowhere to go? I'd say yes to both. And that's a failure of the city.
TJ Browning is the safety chair of the Laurelhurst Neighborhood Association. She's been reporting biohazard and safety concerns of the large homeless camp near Laurelhurst Park for over a year now. Today, the city posted it for removal. In a lengthy statement, the city council said the camp is a health and safety concern and has had recent gun violence issues. Additionally, they said Oregon is one of the worst states in the nation at providing access to mental health care, and they need help from the state and federal levels to address the homeless crisis. I sent an email to Governor Brown's office asking what immediate improvements she's making to address access to behavioral health help, especially for the houseless. Her deputy communications director told me she's ready and willing to work with local leaders on the problem, adding that HB 2086, a part of the budget package, aligns behavioral health programs across the state to improve services, and that legislature is investing $700 million in affordable and supportive housing.
Now, both Kate Brown's office and Portland City Council say that collaboration across local, state, and federal governments will be essential in this process. I reached out to Stop the Sweeps for a response to this, and I personally didn't hear back. But within the last 5 minutes, I realized that Stop the Sweeps did tweet about it. They say, "We are aware of the decision by all city commissioners to sweep Laurelhurst Park. The basis for sweeping is due to an incident we have heard very conflicting accounts of coming from the city and contractors and have thus far been unverifiable by residents at Laurelhurst Park." Tomorrow, Stop the Sweeps will be here at the Portland building for a rally. They are going to be rallying against Clean and Safe, and that is Clean and Safe contracts with the city to do some safety and security work down here in downtown. They do not want the city to renew that contract.